This Oreo chocolate cake is made with my super moist chocolate cake, covered in an Oreo buttercream frosting and layered together with chopped Oreos. It is to die for and so good, you're gonna love it. Hi, I'm Lindsay from Life, Love, and Sugar, and today we're making Oreo chocolate cake. All right, so to get started with our cake, we're gonna mix together our dry ingredients. We've got our all-purpose flour, regular granulated sugar, cocoa powder, baking soda, and salt. We're gonna mix all of this together. Then we're gonna add our wet ingredients. We've got 2 eggs, our milk, our vegetable oil, and we're gonna mix all this together. All right, now we're gonna add our hot water and our vanilla extract. And then again, we'll just combine all of this together. It's gonna give you a very thin cake batter, and that's okay. All right, and there we have our chocolate cake batter, super thin. So don't be concerned when you see that consistency, that's normal. Now when I add my cake batter to my cake pans, I like to use a food scale so that I know that it's divided evenly and they're all gonna bake the same amount of time and we're gonna have even cake layers, but feel free to just eyeball it or use measuring cups, whatever works best for you is fine. So once you have all your cake batter evenly dispersed between your cake pans, you can pop them in the oven. These do bake at 300 degrees. It's lower than normal, but it's a slow bake cake and that makes it super moist, light, and fluffy. So pop them in the oven for about 30 minutes. All right, so once your cakes are baked, you can set them aside to cool, and then we will make our Oreo frosting. You're gonna start off with your butter and add that to your bowl. And then we'll put this on the mixer and mix it until it's nice and creamy. All right, so once your butter is all creamy and smooth, we're gonna start adding our powdered sugar. It is a fair amount of powdered sugar. It's kind of a decorator style buttercream, so it's nice and stiff, but you are welcome to reduce the amount of powdered sugar if you'd like less sugar or kind of a thinner frosting. So we'll add about half of that and then mix it all together. All right, now that that's all creamy and well combined, we can add our vanilla extract and our Oreo crumbs. All right, we'll mix that in. I'm gonna scrape down the sides a little bit just to make sure things are being well incorporated. And we'll add a little bit more powdered sugar. All right, and we will mix that together. And you'll notice that it's gonna be pretty thick, so you can also start adding your heavy cream. You can add as much as you need. I've got about half a cup here, and I will add as much as I need so that it's kind of a nice creamy consistency, but not too thin. So at this point, you can give your frosting a stir and make sure things are all mixed nicely and you don't have any clumps of anything on the bottom. You can also check the consistency to make sure that it's what you want it to be. I like it thick enough that I can frost my cake and it's gonna all hold together nicely, but not too thick. Some sticking to my finger, so that's good. It's not too thick that it's just gonna be like Play-Doh on my cake, but it's plenty stiff enough. You can see it's holding my spatula straight up, so it's not going anywhere. All right, so let's grab our cakes. I've got a cardboard cake circle here that we're gonna build our cake on. Now you'll want a large serrated knife in order to trim these layers and make them kind of flat, cut off that dome. We're gonna add about 1.5 cups of frosting to each cake layer. I'll just spread this into an even layer. And now we will add about half of our chopped Oreos. So we'll press those down into the frosting. Again, we want to have kind of an even surface here. We're trying to have even layers so that we have something nice for our cakes to stack up on. And then we'll spread a little bit, just a thin layer of frosting on top so that there's something for that cake to stick to. All right, now we can add our next layer of cake. And now another layer of frosting. All right, and we'll add the rest of our chopped Oreos. Now I try to keep these from getting too far outside of the edge of the cake because I don't really want them sticking outside of the frosting. And another thin layer of frosting on top. And then we'll add our final layer of cake. Okay, so before we actually frost the outside of the cake, I like to use my offset spatula and just come around and use this excess frosting to fill in gaps and basically create what is kind of like a crumb coat. Okay, so not really like a full crumb coat per se, but we're definitely keeping all those chopped Oreos in place and getting some clean sides to work with for frosting our cake. So now we're going to use the rest of our buttercream to actually frost our cake. So I'll add about a cup, maybe a little less, to the top of the cake and smooth that out, and then we'll do the sides. I have a whole tutorial on how to frost a smooth cake if you want to check that video out as well. So now we're going to go ahead and apply our frosting to the side of the cake. And now I'm going to use my Teco icing smoother to smooth out the sides. All right, now I'll do the corners at the top. One thing that I do sometimes to do kind of a final smoothing if I need to is use a super smooth Viva paper towel and a fondant smoother. And you can actually put that on top of the cake. And as long as your frosting is thick enough, it won't stick to the paper towel. You can just use this to smooth out any final imperfections that you have in your cake if you want to. You can run it along the sides and on the top. Okay, so things are looking pretty good. So now we're going to go ahead and add our chocolate ganache drip. We've got to make our chocolate ganache. We'll set that aside. We'll go ahead and add our hot heavy cream to our chocolate chips. And we will let this sit for a few minutes for the chocolate to soften, and then we'll mix it all together. All right, so this has been sitting a few minutes. We'll go ahead and whisk this all together until we have a nice smooth ganache. All right, so when it's all smooth, we're gonna go ahead and add this to our cake. I like to use a squeeze bottle to add a chocolate drip to my cakes, but you can also just use a spoon and kind of drip it down the sides of the cake as well. All right, now that the drip is there, we'll go ahead and use the rest of the chocolate to fill in the center. You can just kind of leave it simple on top, or you can add kind of a little swirl in the middle, which I use my offset spatula for. I just place it in the center and start there, and then just kind of spin the turntable as I work my way out to the edge of the cake. So now you have a nice little design in the top of your cake, and then we'll go ahead and add our frosting swirls to the top outer edge with some Oreos. And now we will add a few Oreo crumbs just to finish it off. So there you have the finished Oreo chocolate cake. Super moist, full of Oreos, totally delicious. You are going to want to make this cake over and over. For the full recipe, head over to lifeloveandsugar.com.